Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to ask for your indulgence for a few more minutes. We're having a few technical difficulties. We will be joined very shortly by our guest. In the meantime, a few words about how this would work before I officially introduce myself and the series and our guest tonight, the great Eef Barzelay. Um, we are disabling the chat function, but we very, very, very much want your um, questions and answers via the Q&A function. I see, Jake, that If has joined us, or at least says, yep, here he is. So we could start indeed. If you could start your video.
You're my first Zoom. It's the first time I've Zoomed.
Really?
Yeah, I've been
That's
trying to avoid
amazing,
it,
man. What up?
Broken my Zoom cherry.
What magic. Are you able to turn on your video so that we get the full rock and roll experience? Hello. There you are. Oh my Lord, what a pleasure. I do hear a little bit of an echo. How do we deal with that?
There's an echo.
Yeah, I hear myself on your end. Now I don't. Hallelujah. Okay. Shall we start?
Okay. I'm not wearing headphones. That might be why.
Yeah, that might be why. But I think it's fine now. Now I actually can't hear it. All right. So, hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the inaugural event in our Tablet Live series, your quarantine era nightly or occasional bout of conversation, entertainment, and enlightenment with some of the most fascinating, incredible, talented people working today. I am Leah Leibowitz. You are at home on the couch. So grab yourself a cup of ambition and join me in welcoming the great Eef Barzelay, singer and songwriter of Clem Snide. To you, my friend, I raise a glass of arak, l'chaim.
Arak
Thank you for
l'chaim.
joining us.
Yeah, wow, thanks. Thanks for having me.
It's our absolute pleasure. So I want to set the tone for the evening and apologize in advance for what I promise is going to be the only somewhat long-winded intro to a question. I want to set the tone by saying that I truly and deeply believe that you're probably one of the 10 greatest, most talented singer-songwriters working in America today. I've been a fan for 20 years. So I'm going to do my best not to totally geek out and ask you about like little particular lyrics and songs so everyone else could have a good time as well. But I want to start by telling you a little story. So like you, I was born in Israel, and like you, I moved here to America. I came here in 1999. For a couple of years, New York was this amazing, playground, unreal place. And then 9/11 happened. And I had kind of walked away from Israel and thought that I am leaving behind all this kind of real world issues, all the terrorism, all the problems. And then to be confronted with like a sort of kind of an extreme dose of reality made me feel really lonely. It made me feel like a stranger again in the city. And so I walked to this place called Tower Records. And if you're under 30 and watching us now, you could Google what that was. And I saw this CD with this cool name called The Ghost of Fashion by this cool sounding band, Clem Snide, with a name out of a character from a William Burroughs novel. And I buy the CD and I sit down, I pick a track at random. It says Joan Jett of Arc, which I thought was a really clever, punny title. And it was like being hit in the stomach with a sledgehammer. It was such an incredibly beautiful, emotional song. And the first thing that I remember thinking is, and this is before you had Google, before you could just pull up your phone and look up everything about the band, I was thinking, this guy isn't from around here. There's something about him that's kind of, in the best sense of the word, profoundly un-American. There's something about him that is world weary and a little bit broken, but not despairing, kind of like very Jewish. Why is that? Is that because you're an immigrant here? Is that because you're sort of flitting between genres? Explain yourself, stranger.
Leah. Bates meal.
Yeah.
Well, I came to my family moved to New Jersey from a kibbutz when I was 6. So I I think part of the, if I had to kind of try to explain myself, mystery that is me, I think my theory is that my programming was interrupted. So the way I experienced is I was never quite Israeli and I was never quite American. I was in this weird liminal place, this in between place. And and so for a long time I had a lot of angst, existential angst. In my 20s, I had a stomach ache for 9 years.
I think
And
that's
that
just called being
9 years
Jewish, but okay. Yeah.
Jewish. Yeah, my grandparents were Holocaust survivors, but they got out to Israel. They were young, so they had a lot of guilt, a lot of survivor guilt. And then, my parents were Israelis. Um, so my grandparents were Jews who became atheists, and then my parents were Zionists who moved to New Jersey. So that's what they left me with. They left me with like godless Judaism, just nothing, no religion. We didn't do
What you're saying is that
anything. We had
you come
nothing.
from a family that is only ever comfortable being on the outside of whatever that thing that they look at is. So growing up, who do you listen to? What's your musical diet growing up in a house of Israeli godless kibbutznik communists in New Jersey?
Um, well, that's a big part of my, yeah. See, I found music very much on my own. My mother had her Barbra Streisand cassette in the car, and my dad listened to classical music, and that's it. And so when I discovered rock and roll music in the early '80s, it was like mine. It was something that was all mine. I mean, me and my friends, um, and yeah, so it's always been it's just been how I've found my own sort of identity in it,
It was your
apart from,
America. It was your initiation
yeah,
into
like
this.
that's how I'm American, because I am American, even though I'm not really, I'll never be really American, like 100%, because I wasn't born here. And like, my dad still barely speaks English, like I'm not, and then I have nowhere to go to. I don't go back to New Jersey. Like there's nowhere, like nowhere is home. That I think is the Jewish, like a Jew is never at home anywhere in the world. Ultimately,
And so
so that's how I feel.
speaking of not being at home, here you are. You just released. You've been around. The band has been around for a few years. It's getting some fans. It's now 2001. You released this album, The Ghost of Fashion. You have a song on TV. This is supposed to be the big breakthrough moment. And you go on your big tour that's supposed to really kind of break you out and make you the huge band, the Rolling Stones of our time. And then 9/11 happens. Where are you when 9/11 happens?
Yeah, we woke up in this loft in downtown Memphis, where the night before, the promoter, was this eccentric, and people in Memphis are all a little eccentric. He and so the night before, he had porn on this big screen TV going while had this mixer, and then we slept sort of on the floor, and so we woke up on that same screen that had shown porn the night before, and we watched the towers, go down. and uh, and I'll tell you a funny story. So we were in San Antonio and we got pulled over. This is 3 days after 9/11, and there's like 6, state troopers, and they're screaming at us, and they search us, and they're okay. We're a band. Anyway, so and then we kept getting pulled over in Texas like 2 more times because because apparently there were some terrorists in a New York, plated 15-passenger van that. And us, there was us and the terrorists, and we kept getting.
Right.
Finally, the guy's like, "Oh,
The
you're
only
that
two bands
band."
in Texas
Only
were
2
Clem
bands in Texas.
Snide and Al Qaeda.
Pretty much.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But
But
then
yeah,
I mean that tour ends and
it changed, ultimately, for sure, not for the better necessarily.
so what does that feel like? I mean, what does it feel like to be on this cusp of great big kind of breakthrough, breakout, and then to find yourself in a different world, in a different place?
Well, I think, looking back at it all, I think we weren't really ready, ultimately. Like, I don't think there are any mistakes, you know. I think everything kind of plays out exactly as it should, you know. So for a long time I was bitter about it. But I think working through that bitterness was a big part of my sort of transformation. And also, yeah, we never quite came together as a band. It was always, the manager had his was bad. I mean, it was just bad. It was always dysfunctional, and things never quite connected or gelled. So 9/11 was just one more, part of that sort of, you know. But yeah, I don't know. For me, I'm taking the long road. I don't, 'cause I don't really know what I'm doing. That's the thing, is like, I see other people doing it. I go, man, they seem like they know what they're doing. Like, I'm always just kind of making it up as I go along. So yeah. So
Right, but I've interviewed and talked to enough musicians to know that 9 out of 10 people in your position would have done the sort of obvious thing of saying, "Hey, man, I tried this rock and roll dream. I used to be in my 20s, now in my 30s. I used to be single, now I'm married. Hey, man, it didn't work out for me. I always have good memories. Now is the time to go to law school. Now is the time to take that office job." And you, despite a series, a decade of challenges and hard decade or more of challenges and hardships, you never did. You kept at it and created these incredible albums we'll talk about in a sec. Is that a dialogue that goes on in your head, or did it never even occur to you that leaving music professionally was an option?
I mean, you know, I I think you gotta go all in, man. You just gotta go. I remember being in high school. I didn't do well in high school. You know, I like, my future wasn't like, I didn't I didn't know what the hell. I And even in high school, it wasn't like I could play a little bit of guitar. Like, I didn't even know what I was, it wasn't like I was some prodigy, and it was just a given that I'd be this musician. Never. It was always a giant leap of faith. And and yeah, people said, "Oh, you should have something to fall back on," whatever. My guitar teacher said it, and I was like, that doesn't feel right to me. Like, and my suspicions have been confirmed. Sorry, I'm gonna keep going. My suspicions have been confirmed because, yeah, because if I did have something to fall back on, I would have fallen back on. So in that way, I think you got to go all in. You can't have a net.
You
You
have
got
to
to
burn all the ships as soon as you disembark, is what you're saying.
exactly. You got to burn the ship. There's no going back. I
And so,
mean, and I have a wife and two children, and that makes it really, that keeps it real. If I didn't have a wife and kids, I'd be off to Burning Man, whatever. I'd be I'd be fishing somewhere. I mean, that made it a lot harder, but also, I think, made it more real for me ultimately. Like, it's real. Like, there's people depending on this shit. It's not just
so I want to talk
focus.
about God and Billie Eilish and a bunch of other really important things. But before I do that, one thing that I absolutely love so much about you, and made me really connect to Clem Snide, is your incredible facility with covers. I think I heard you play, the first cover I ever heard you play was "Beautiful" by Christina Aguilera. And all of a sudden, I remember myself kind of putting on my head and saying, "Oh my God, it's actually a good song." I'm hearing it now for the first time. So
Oh, it's a
I'm going to ask you to take your guitar and do us the honor of
oh,
presenting
numbers for
any cover
beautiful.
you want.
Oh man. All right. Oh, wait, hold on one second. All right, I'm gonna play. I'm gonna play. This is the song. This is like my song that I just play sometimes, just for just over and over again. It's like a practice, a meditation. Elizabeth Cotton, also a lefty. Freight train, run so fast. Freight train, run so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I have gone. when I'm dead and in my grave. No more good times here I crave. Place the stones at my dead and feet. Tell them all that I've gone to sleep. When I die, Lord, bury me deep. Down at the end of old Chestnut Street, so I can hear old number 9 as she goes strolling by. Freight train, run so fast. Freight train, run so fast. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I have gone. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I have gone. Please don't tell what train I'm on. They won't know what route I am on.
Woo! Oh, wow. Everyone watching, you know, you could be in some dank, overpriced, silly Manhattan bar, paying a lot of money for this experience. And here you are in the comfort of your home, watching this incredible talent. Thank you.
Well, you're very welcome.
So this is actually kind of a good musical segue to my next question. And I hope that you won't be too coy about it, because look, I listen to a lot of these young kids. Look at me with my gray beard. A lot of these young kids making music today. And here's what occurs to me. They're really talented. They're really great. They're sitting in their bedrooms. This is why I mentioned Billie Eilish before. And they have these like $1,400 Macs that with pieces of software that can make them sound like whatever they want. And they make these songs that sound so fucking great. But then you listen to these songs, and after 3 or 4 times, you realize these kids never live, right? They're writing songs based on zero life experience. And here you are embodying all this like really audible sonic pain, heartbreak, frustration, faith, grace. When you listen to kids, musicians today, are you like livid? Are you moved? What are you? And who do you hate?
Yeah, I went through a period of bitterness. I'll admit to you. In my late, I don't look it, but I'm about to turn 50. So it's been like decades of this shit. So in my late 30s, I became bitter. There's certain, who do I hate? All right. Alanis Morissette's music is like nails on a chalkboard for me. Her voice, I can't take it. Kesha too. Kesha's voice is like just the tone, just the of her voice. But I don't, listen, I don't hate. I got nothing but respect for anybody who makes anything. Or somebody who puts it, gets it together and makes some kind of music. But no, I like a lot of the pop music today. There's a certain, it's different. When I was younger, the pop music was more like the pop music today. I think is a lot more sophisticated musically and sonically. Like Drake is really cool, and Billie Eilish too. I think her music it's like subtle. It's not like the pop music that when I was a kid, the pop music was like Backstreet Boys or something. It was kind of easy to make fun of. But nowadays, like the pop music seems cool. I don't know. I'm so past all that. I feel so beyond anything like that. So I don't even really know.
Do you still listen to current stuff, or are you mostly now kind of ensconced in your own sonic?
I stopped listening to like indie rock, that sort of. I'd say 20 years ago. Like I stopped following. Like I don't like the 21st century bands. I mean, I don't like the music that's happening in the 21st century I don't, it sounds like more like a kind of echo of what happened in the mid 20th century. You know what I'm saying? It's not like as if music just keeps getting better. That's when music was transcended, like post-war, early 60s. I'd say pre-Beatles. Like that's when American music was transcended. So I just listen to that, and I don't need, I can appreciate other people interpreting that just as I'm doing, but I don't necessarily need to listen to interpretations of it as much as just listen to it itself.
Do you have a
Do you know what I'm saying?
theory about that shift? Do you have kind of like a grand theory of American musical history of why this kind of, what I totally agree as a kind of a spirally decline in
Well,
inspiration,
it's like
grace?
it's like anything else. It lives, it's born and then it just sort of lives and it gets old and decays. I think, so I think what happened, what happened musically after, post-war in America, all the factors, historical, cultural, everything that came together and manifested itself in American music. God damn it. Sorry. In American music post-war, and in every genre too, across the board, that moment was a transcendent moment. Like miraculous, like the music that emerged from that moment. It was like a 20-year period. I don't know, it doesn't, it's roughly speaking. I think was yeah. So I just that's what I listen to. You know what I'm saying?
Since you, I do, and since you mentioned this transcendence element, um, I want to ask you this. So, as I mentioned, and as again my beard will betray, I've been listening to you for 2 decades now. And it seems to me, and I may be totally off here, but that there is some kind of shift in your music from the somewhat, embodied rock and roll, kind of rock and roll that feels like it's moving, it's there, it's in a physical body, to something that is increasingly becoming more and more and more spiritual. I'm talking about songs like "Pray," which is this amazing, incredible, almost, kind of dirge turned hymn turned, revival meeting. And in the latest album, which is just phenomenal, the song Roger Ebert, which I'm hoping to convince you to sing to us at the end. What happened? Is it because your interests are becoming more and more metaphysical? Is it because you're thinking more and more about God, which you mentioned from time to time in your music? What's going on?
Yeah, that's I think I've always been a seeker, I guess, active or not. Just I don't know. I feel a certain pull in that direction. And I think also part of it is part of my kind of revived sense of it is that I don't, I think, yeah, I've had, it's like a 12-step sort of awakening, like you need something beyond yourself. I think the culture sells us this message that you can worship yourself, that you can put yourself or your idea of yourself at the top of the pyramid, and then you're free of God's judgment. You're free to be whoever you want to be. And and yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I like that offer, but there's a big but attached to it. And as you get older, especially as I got older and shit got real, in a way I had to that didn't work for me. It just didn't work. Like I failed. Like to me it's more I'm trying to move away from myself I think when you step outside of yourself, when you move away from yourself, you just naturally move towards God, because that's what there is outside of yourself.
Even if you're raised by two atheist Jews.
Yeah, you don't have to think of it as God. You don't have to, but it is. You know what I'm saying? It's once you just have to move away from yourself, and that's where you'll be headed. So it's, it's, there's no religious, it's not, there's no affiliation, attached to it, other than trying to write a good song. So that's
And so, speaking of writing good songs and of God, our colleague, tablet writer Armin Rosen, sworn me that I will ask you a question that always also, kind of intrigued me about one of your most incredible songs called Jews for Jesus Blues. And I want to read a few lines just so people can, hear this majestic work. I opened my heart and let Jesus in with the promise that I would be free of my sins. But I only felt guilty that he died on the cross. Now that I'm found, I miss being lost. Tell us. Tell us about the origin of this incredible
uh,
nouveau
well,
Dylan-esque line.
yeah, I moved. Yeah, when I moved to Nashville about 15 years ago, I got more. I was surprised by how many people were actively Christian. Because I think up north, if you live up in the north, uh, nobody's, or people just aren't as actively Christian as they are in the South. So that was my first kind of experience with that. And people that I wouldn't have thought, and then so they would invite me. It happened a few times. Hey, why don't you come to our church this Sunday? And I was, and in a way, I love Christianity. There's something, I don't, there's something so beautiful and true about it. In a way, I kind of get it, and I know it's like a heresy to come out of a Jew's mouth, but like it is a sort of completion of Judaism in a way. I kind of get that part of it, and it is more embodied anyway. But then I thought, if that was my honest response to that invitation, that I like being lost. I don't ever want to be found.
You're too much of
There's
a
no,
Jew to take any of this. Too hard.
yeah,
And so I think last week, when did the last album come out? Last week?
just a month ago,
A
just
month ago.
about, yeah.
The opening track is really, I mean, I listened to it the day it came out because I was, intrigued because I'm a big fan, but it was another one of these songs that really kind of hit me in the stomach because it is so beautiful and haunting, and it has that quality that you have, which is at the same time being funny and strange and earnest and transcendent and just kind of so open. And it's a song about Roger Ebert's last words, and I'm wondering if we ask very nicely, if you could tell us a little bit about it and then maybe sing it for us.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me, all right, wait, I gotta just switch the guitars here. My guitar tech came down with the COVID. When can we start joking about the COVID? Not just yet. Yeah, so I just, well, I love, all right, so part of my metaphysical, part of my sort of patchwork like theology is YouTube. So I watch, I get most of my religious information from YouTube. So I watch these people talk about their near death experiences, and I just love everything about a near death experience. I
That
love
was probably a really interesting Wednesday night, that the night that you did that rabbit hole search on near death experiences in YouTube.
I didn't hear the first thing you said.
Go
But
ahead.
anyway, it was in that searching that I found this interview with Roger Ebert's widow, his wife Chaz, and she was talking about his final moments, and that he would pass her these notes because he couldn't talk. He had throat cancer, and he was kept writing. It's all an elaborate hoax. he was like the whole, the matrix was starting to kind of dissolve in front of his eyes. He parted the veil. He was able to push through the veil of eternal veil. And so I took, I took some of the words, some of his actual words, and I just made them rhyme. And yeah, I don't know. It just became a song, God's own mystery, really. Try to play it then.
Please do.
Dude, I know I set myself up and then I just dropped myself, right? All right. Did you know these were dying words? Did you know these were Roger Ebert dying words? It's all an elaborate hoax. It's all an elaborate hoax. It looked ever peaceful, looked ever young, accepting his moment that soon would be done. He wrote in a note that he passed to his wife as he felt himself shedding the skin of this life. It said, there is a vastness that can't be contained or described as a thought in the flesh of our brain. Everything, everywhere, future and past, dissolving together in an eternal no words to say that he loved her so much. Hands seemed to pass through whatever it touched, and credits that rolled listed all of God's names as images floated away from their frame. Did you know these were Roger Ebert dying words? Did you know these were Roger Ebert dying words? It's all an elaborate hoax. It's all an elaborate hoax.
Oh my. Whew. How do you keep it together singing a thing like this that you had written that came from some deep place in you and not kind of dissolving into tears?
Oh, I've brought myself to tears a couple times. There's some shit going on in my life. It's not like every time.
So listen, before we let you go with deep thanks for your generosity and your magic, a few questions from listeners. First of all, where are you based right now? First of all, in the general sense of in what city, but in what room are we catching you as you do this?
Well, I'm in my basement. I fixed up my basement. You see, I decorated the old fridge there with duct tape and magnets, and I'm doing a lot of fermenting. It's very important. Get your probiotics.
That's awesome. Are you still in Nashville?
In Nashville, yeah, kind of on the west part of west side of Nashville.
Lucky. Another one of our listeners wants to know about your comment earlier about music is it possible that there's a lot of great stuff being made, but there's so much cacophony by the sheer volume of people putting out so much stuff on the internet that all the good stuff gets lost?
Yeah, I mean that's a big thing for me. Woo! See, this is me being overwhelmed. Wah!
Yeah, I can't blame you.
I can't. You know what I listen to? I end up like I'm not a because I spend a lot of time trying to write music and playing music myself that I don't want to listen to me. You know, it's not like I'm not like a fan in that way. I think I have a different relationship to music. Um, so yeah, so I don't want to sound like a jerk, you know, like, oh yeah, there's no more good music. Like, you know, I just, yeah, I can't have a bunch of other people's music in my head. Like I only have so much room in there for music. You know what I'm saying? So yeah.
You are one of what Leonard Cohen so poignantly called the workers in song. So listen, because you are really one of the very few voices that captures the beauty and the terror, the heartbreak and the hope. Uh, I'd like to end on the latter. Give us, all those listening and all those needing a ray of something bright in these dark times, give us, walk us away with one hopeful message, with one
Hopeful
insight,
message.
with one nugget of beauty.
Man, oh, you're setting me up. Um, you know, it's like it's like a forest fire, you know? Like sometimes the dead wood just has to burn away for the new life to begin. That's how it works, you know. Pain is the price of admission. You know what I'm saying? And so yeah, so you just pay it, you know. But then you know you get to enjoy the ride. You know what I'm saying?
So speaking of paying and enjoying the rides, everyone listening should drop everything they're doing right now and go buy Forever Just Beyond, the new album from Clem Snide, which is a thing of magnificence beauty. Eef Barzelay, we are so grateful to you for joining us tonight.
Yeah, בהחלט, בהחלט.
Laila Tov.
לילה טוב.
And thank you all for joining us. And check tabletmag.com for a stunning lineup of future events. Good night, everybody.
All right. Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem.
Baruch Hashem. Woo.